The Suwalki Gap, a sliver of land hemmed in by Kaliningrad and Belarus. Putin viewed this patch of ground as the vital link to shatter Europe's entire safety framework instantly. Long-standing Kremlin strategy held that severing this artery would fracture NATO, isolating the Baltic nations and plunging them into total darkness. This explains the months of border-pushing provocations involving stray missiles and suicide drones to test the West's resolve. Yet the aggressor now finds itself snagged within the very strategic web it attempted to weave. Leaders in Warsaw and Tallinn, realizing they were next if Ukraine's lines buckled, made a historic move to rewrite the tactical playbook. Poland's defense titan Polska Group and Estonian tech leader Frankenberg teamed up to launch a massive game-changing partnership. This deal centers on the Mark I interceptor, an ultra-short-range system engineered to obliterate mechanical swarms in the skies. We'll explore how this small-scale rocket fortifies the Baltic border, but the true breakthrough is the financial strategy behind it. PGZ chief Adam Lekovitz broke it down quite simply. The war in Ukraine proved that burning expensive tech to stop cheap swarm-style drone strikes is a tactical and financial dead end. That simple point highlights the failure of modern war economics, where the aggressor relies on low-cost weaponry. Defenders burn through high-priced interceptors until their stockpiles vanish and their budgets completely bottom out. The Mark I solves this crisis by prioritizing low-cost, high-speed manufacturing and seamless logistics for restocking. Examining its specs reveals that this missile packs a punch far beyond what its small size suggests. Weighing under 2 kilograms, it measures 660 millimeters long with a diameter of just 60 millimeters. Within its small frame sits a solid fuel motor hitting over 1,000 kilometers per hour with an advanced electro-optical seeker. It reaches out 2 kilometers and climbs to 1.5 kilometers, carrying a half-kilogram high-explosive fragmentation charge. It uses a proximity fuse to detonate near the target or safely self-destructs if it fails to make contact. The system locks onto threats in day or night and clings to them relentlessly until impact. The real disruption is the price, aiming for a unit cost of around $40,000 to $50,000. That is only 1/10 the price of a standard Stinger missile. If Russia launches a Shahed, Poland intercepts it with a Mark I at only double or triple the drone's cost. This finally tips the financial scales in the defender's favor. Plus, this isn't some amateur garage prototype. Engineered for high-volume output using standard commercial parts, it moved from the drawing board to live fire in 13 months. Compared to the typical glacial pace of the defense sector, this development speed is virtually unprecedented. Construction is already underway in Poland for a facility capable of producing 10,000 units every year. This massive output ends any fear of running out of ammo, backed by the EU's €150 billion defense fund. Poland is set to secure a major portion of those funds to supercharge the Mark I assembly lines. But the most vital part is still coming, as the Mark I is simply the opening act. This partnership also paves the way for the Mark II, which will stretch its reach to 5 to 8 kilometers. This advancement will significantly reinforce the middle tier of their multi-layered aerial defense strategy. Poland will deploy the Mark I for budget drones, while the Mark II handles faster, more substantial aerial threats. High-end systems like the Patriot will be saved exclusively for high-stakes targets like cruise missiles and enemy jets. What exactly is the driving force behind this massive, first-of-its-kind industrial partnership? Russia's repeated border incursions and blatant disregard for international norms built the foundation for this alliance. Take September 9th through 10th, 2025, when 19 to 23 Russian drones swarmed across the border in a major provocation. Moscow used budget Shaheds to gauge NATO's reaction times, but the Kremlin's gamble ended up backfiring completely. While Poland fortifies its ground borders, a massive shift is simultaneously taking place in the skies above. Lockheed Martin confirmed that Poland's initial batch of F-35A Lightning II fighters arrives this summer. These fifth-generation stealth jets, dubbed Hussars, will reach the 32nd Tactical Air Base starting in May 2026. The facility officially received its F-35 operational certification in March 2026. 2 aircraft land in May, followed by a third in July, totaling a 32-jet order worth $4.6 billion. The initial 8 aircraft are staying stateside to serve as training platforms for Polish pilots. From the 9th airframe onward, all deliveries will head straight to Polish airfields. We'll see the rest of those jets roll in from 2027 through 2030, splitting up into 2 units stationed out in Lask and Swidwin. This big reveal happened while the Polish president was touring the F-35 plant in Fort Worth, Texas back on March 27th and 28th. That wasn't an accident. Warsaw is clearly sending a loud and clear message to everyone watching. Warsaw isn't just talking a big game anymore. They've officially stepped up as a true fifth-gen military powerhouse. To get why the F-35A is a big deal, just check its stats. It spots and hits targets from over 200 kilometers out. It can really move two hitting speeds of Mach 1.6. With a range of 2,200 kilometers and an 8-ton payload, its TR-3 setup even features AI that handles target spotting on its own. But the real kicker might be its networking. These planes swap live intel with every other NATO F-35 in the sky. If a pilot over the Netherlands picks up a threat near Poland, the guys on the Polish front line see it instantly. You're not just looking at a lone fighter jet here. It's one piece of a massive high-tech combat web. Ditching those old Soviet MiG-29s and Su-22s for the F-35 isn't just a tech swap, it's a massive leap forward. This move basically rewrites the whole rulebook for who controls the skies on NATO's eastern edge. An F-35 can get a lock on its prey way before a Russian Su-35 even knows it's being watched. It's got the stealth to slip right into the teeth of those IS-400 batteries, the core of Moscow's defenses, and take them out, which totally flips the script. With neighbors like Germany, Finland, and the Czechs also buying in, a wall of stealth is forming over Eastern Europe. But Poland is also hardening things on the ground. We just saw the latest piece of that defensive puzzle fall into place on March 28th. The Polish Interior Ministry just gave the word that border checks with Germany and Lithuania are staying put for another 6 months. Running from April 5th to October 1st, this is actually the 4th time they've pushed back these temporary controls since July 2025. It's a pretty wild situation for the Schengen zone, where people are usually free to come and go as they please. They're pulling over and tossing cars at random across 50 spots on the German line and 13 over by Lithuania. They're even keeping an eye on backwoods trails and those natural green borders out in the wilderness. And it's not just the usual border agents out there doing the heavy lifting. You've got the regular police and soldiers from the territorial defense teams right in the middle of the action. Officially, it's about stopping illegal crossings and keeping things safe, but the underlying reality is a lot messier. Basically, Belarus and Russia are treating people like pawns in a bigger game. Folks from across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia are being funneled to the border to be shoved into Poland and the rest of Europe. Just in the first 8 months of 2025, they clocked nearly 25,000 attempts to sneak across the Belarusian line. Major smuggling rings are running full tilt through the corridor connecting the Baltics, Poland, and the rest of the West. Poland calls this a hybrid attack, and honestly, they aren't wrong to see it that way. This surge of people isn't some accident. It's a calculated mess cooked up by the Kremlin and Minsk to stir the pot. The whole point is to bleed Poland dry, spark political fights at home, and tear the EU apart from the inside. But Warsaw didn't bite. Instead, they've woven this shadow conflict right into their standard national defense strategy. The way the border teams, police, and local units work together looks more like a precision military op than standard patrolling. And they didn't stop at the ground. Warsaw has essentially padlocked the skies along their eastern flank too. They've banned anything from flying under 3,000 meters in the zone running along the borders with Ukraine and Belarus. These rules stay in place from March 10th to June 9th, and the reasoning is dead simple. All through 2025, Russian-made Gerber drones, spy balloons, and off-course missiles kept drifting into Polish air. Putin was just poking the bear to see how the radars reacted, so cutting off all air traffic makes the math way easier. Now they don't have to guess if a radar blip is a hobbyist in a glider or a Russian suicide drone. If it's on the screen, it's a target, and that's the main point I want to drive home today. If you want to keep up with this kind of deep dive strategy, hit that subscribe button for the TGN channel, because all these pieces fit into a massive trap for the Baltics. Poland just cranked its defense budget to 4.8% of its GDP, outspending every single NATO ally, the US included. They're tripling their boots on the ground to 300,000 and loaded up on 250 Abrams tanks, 1,000 Black Panthers, and tons of rocket systems. The $2.5 billion Eastern Shield project is lining 700 kilometers with bunkers and AI sensors, while HIMARS launchers are aimed straight at the neighbors. Under the Safe Podlasie banner, tens of thousands of combat-ready troops are keeping a constant watch along the frontier. A fresh $2 billion counter-UAV shield is officially going live. Perhaps the most startling move came in February 2026, when Warsaw formally walked away from the Ottawa Treaty. This paves the way for perimeter explosives along the frontier. Withdrawing from global disarmament pacts clearly signals how dire they view the current danger. Take a look at the full array. Mark 1 missiles, F-35 squadrons restricted. Flight zones, a 700-kilometer barrier, heavy mining, and 300,000 active troops. We aren't just looking at a standard military plan anymore. It's an impenetrable stronghold, and Warsaw isn't the only one building it. This is where the scale of the operation really hits home. Estonia is carving out a massive 30-kilometer deep defensive zone right along its edge. They've spiked their 2026 military spending to 5% of their total economy, a staggering figure for any European nation. They're stocking up on next-gen rocket systems, doubling mandatory service to 2 years, and bulking up their reserve units to match an entire division. The latest 2026 intelligence briefing from Tallinn makes their stance crystal clear: absolutely zero leeway for foreign drones. Anything crossing that line won't get a warning. It's getting shot down on sight. This is exactly where the strategic weight of the Mark I missile comes in. Combine Estonia's hardline policy with the 10,000 Mark I units rolling out of Polish factories, and the scope of this defense is staggering. From the Baltics down to the Polish border, NATO's eastern edge is being wrapped in a high-tech wall of steel and signals that no drone can bypass. This isn't built on overpriced tech, but on a flood of affordable fire-and-forget rockets. And those stockpiles are bottomless because the Polish assembly lines are pumping out new units around the clock. Over in Latvia, the situation looks even more intense. The leadership in Riga just greenlit a plan to completely sever every road and rail link to the east if tensions boil over. They are prepared to scrap their own transport networks to ensure no paved path exists for heavy armor to roll through. A nation ready to burn its own bridges is a nation that feels its very heart is at stake. History shows these calls are only made during existential crises. This isn't about politics, it's the raw drive for national survival. Meanwhile, Lithuania has already pulled the trigger on the most drastic measures, wiring key bridges along the Belarus border with explosives. Vital transit points are now heavily protected, and Lithuanian soil now hosts the biggest German military presence abroad since the 1940s. A full German battalion is locked in to hold that narrow gap. Now let's zoom out and look at how all these pieces fit together. Poland has a 700-kilometer ground wall, F-35s patrolling the skies, multi-layered missile shields, mined border crossings, and locked-down airspace. Estonia guards the north with a deep defensive crust and a shoot-on-sight policy, while Latvia stands ready to dismantle its own infrastructure. With Lithuania's bridges rigged and German tanks on site, the reality is clear: the Baltics are no longer a soft target. They've become a hair-trigger trap, fully loaded and ready to snap. This echoes the warning from Mark Cancian at the CSYS think tank in D.C. He suggests that Warsaw's rapid buildup and border lockdowns are being read in Moscow not as a shield, but as a sword being sharpened for an opening strike. This perspective gives the Kremlin a convenient excuse, particularly with the world's attention elsewhere. Between the escalating Middle East conflicts and the friction between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, American focus is being pulled away. Over in the Pacific, Beijing is turning up the heat with massive military drills encircling Taiwan. Washington has never been pulled in so many directions at once, and American military assets are stretched thin across the globe. Would the Russian leadership view this global friction as the perfect moment to strike the Suwalki Gap or push into Poland? That's where they hit a wall of hard facts. Moscow's forces have taken a massive beating in the grueling conflict to their south. We're talking hundreds of thousands of casualties and a huge chunk of their modern tank fleet turned into scrap metal. Nowadays, the Kremlin can only keep up with frontline losses by running their military factories 24/7. Intel reports out of Germany suggest it'll be at least 2029 before their military is restored enough to even think about challenging NATO. That detail changes the entire equation. Unlike other regions, Poland is a cornerstone of the Western alliance. It's a well-funded powerhouse armed with the latest tech. No matter what's happening in Asia or the Middle East, Poland is a core NATO member. Right now, over 8,000 American service members are on the ground in Poland. Thousands of U.S. tanks and armored rigs are fueled up and ready at the massive Powidz hub. Any move against Polish soil wouldn't just mean fighting Warsaw. It would mean a direct engagement with American troops, instantly triggering Article 5. Poland's F-35 jets and rocket batteries can effectively neutralize any incoming armored columns before they even reach the boundary. Such a gamble by the Kremlin wouldn't just destroy their military. It would likely collapse their entire power structure, a risk the current leadership won't take. If you found this deep dive helpful, hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. We value your input, so drop a comment below. We've got more critical updates coming your way in the next one. Keep it locked right here.